Yeah.
AJ Gould right there with Time Machine. Mornings with Lone Star. Meet the candidates happening right now. It's 9:02. Hanging out with Nathan Arrazate. If you didn't know, folks, every Monday through Friday leading up to March 1st elections from 9 to 10, we're going to be focusing on political things, also inviting really anyone to kind of talk about their campaign, candidates. One thing we're trying to work on now is get campaign managers, because we were talking about that a couple days ago, that we really want to get that insight, because to me that's pretty interesting. Nathan, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
It's a little chilly.
Just a little bit. There was some frost on the car this morning.
Yeah. And there's no rain till Monday, so that's kind of nice.
Oh, rock and roll.
So Montgomery County is going to be absolutely beautiful this weekend, so I'm really excited about that. Explain what's going on today. Who's our special guest?
We have a young man who a lot of people refer to him as an effervescent young man by the name
You
of...
like that word a lot. I've noticed. You say at least
the E word. It's a good word. Effervescence. It means bubbly. It also means other things. We won't go there, like gassy and stuff like that, like Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah.
But young man by the name of Craig Doyal. He's also known as the county judge. No, you don't have to call him Your Honor. You don't have to kiss the ring, but he's a pretty cool dude. So he's going to be in here talking to us about the state of the office, the state of the county.
Yeah, glad to be with you this morning.
Yeah,
Nathan.
thank you.
You too, Dick.
Judge.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So let's start off with trying to figure out, or informing the audience and listeners, where can we find more information about you? Because I know the mctx.org actually has some information about the county judge and what you do. But if I wanted to call you, is that where I go?
Yeah, go to the mctx.org. Then give you contact information for the office, and give us a call anytime. You can reach our office at 936-539-7812 at any time, and I'm glad to answer questions for anybody that may have one.
And if you don't mind, give us a little synopsis of what the county judge does.
County judge it's almost a misnomer, because it's not a judicial position as most people think. I have people all the time ask me, what kind of cases do you hear? Well, I don't hear cases of law. The county judge it presides over the commissioner's court. The county judge truly is really the CEO of Montgomery County, if you will. We provide, and the court handles all of the administrative functions of the county. We ratify all contracts, we set the budget, we set the tax rate. We're the administrative body of the county, and as the county judge, I preside over that commissioner's court, hence the title county judge. The county judge does a lot of other things too. I'm the director of emergency management, in charge of all of our emergency management coordination. We take care of indigent burials. We take care of a lot of other issues dealing with tax abatement programs and all of the business functions, basically, of Montgomery County.
What about burials? What was that?
We take care of indigent burials. If someone passes away in Montgomery County that's homeless and has no other place to turn, we take care of those burials. One of the things that people just don't realize that the county, one of the things you don't think of the county taking care of, but that's one of the functions of our office.
Yeah, when Nathan told me you were coming in, I kind of think to myself, all right, let's imagine this guy's day to day, and being a county judge is like every day's got to be different a little bit.
It's interesting. I had someone in my office the other day, and there was a lot of papers on the desk, and they said, there's a lot of different things there. I said, the interesting thing about that is there's not one piece of paper on that desk that relates to the other one. I'm dealing with things like we're working to hire a new forensic pathologist, eventually taking our forensics facility to an ME's office, and so we're trying to find the individual that's the right guy to move us to that level.
Now, with that office, what is that used for police work, or is that just in general we always need a forensic?
A forensic pathologist is the one that does autopsies. When someone dies and a JP goes out on the scene, they send it to the forensic pathologist to do an autopsy when necessary. And so the recent person that was in charge of that facility just left, and we're trying to find a new person to fit that position. We've got our emergency management director just retired. I'm looking for a new person to fill that position. Dealing with different entities that are moving their businesses to Montgomery County, discussing tax abatements and where they fit in that program. Just every day is different. Every single day, throughout the day, I'm looking at a myriad of different issues that I deal with.
With the growth of Montgomery County, too, that's always kind of something we like to talk about, is being the county judge and seeing how long have you been county judge? For a year?
1 year.
And how long is the term for?
4.
4. And do you plan on running again?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is something you have a long-term plan for, and it's from your first year being here, what do you see being the CEO of Montgomery County? Where do you see this growth happening? Where do you see the improvements that need to be made, and also the things that were made before you that just need to be maintained? And also, what you got to give yourself some credit. Like, what have you done that you really like to tell people that this is what we've changed in this year?
Is that the "What have you done for us lately" question?
Yeah, that's
what have you done for us today
Yeah.
question. Yeah, well, I have a very interesting perspective on all that, Dick, because I grew up here in Montgomery County, served as the administrative assistant to Commissioner Malcolm Purvis for 14 years, and served as commissioner for 14 years prior to becoming county judge. So I've watched firsthand a lot of the growth that has occurred. You see down in South Montgomery County, a lot of the woodlands is they're very little in terms of growth left in the woodlands proper. A lot of the growth that you're seeing right now is out to the west, along 249 coming up toward Magnolia. You see a lot of growth. There's always been development and growth around the lake. We're seeing more and more development to the north with the Hughes Corporation Group buying a large tract up to the north around Willis. You see tremendous growth along the 59 corridor, New Caney, Splendora, Porter, Splendora, that area. So you're seeing a lot of growth in the outlying areas of the county now, and mobility is the critical issue there.
Well, with the growth, do you mean residential or do you mean commercial?
Yes.
Both. All right. No, I'm just wondering because
what happens is we have you won't see a lot of the commercial growth until you see the rooftops there. We see a lot of residential growth coming in, and we're working hard to attract more commercial and corporate growth to complement that residential growth. Because if you look at, I saw a report the other day that came across my desk. It was from the Farm Bureau actually. It said that for every dollar generated in residential taxes, there's about $1.16 to $1.20 service requirement. For every dollar generated in exempt property, timber exempt or agricultural exempt property, there's about a 37-cent service requirement. For every dollar generated in commercial taxes, there's about a 29-cent service requirement. So we're working really hard to see more commercial and corporate growth in Montgomery County to help offset the tax burden on the residential taxpayer.
And as a county judge, how do you maintain, or is it even something you plan for, or do you just react, or how do you accomplish goals?
Yeah, well,
like
part of it is providing mobility that will attract those corporations to come here. If you're at gridlock and no one can move around, no one's going to want to move their business here. If they can't get customers and clients to their facilities, they're not going to come. So what we're trying to do is continue to look at ways. And our bond issue was an issue that we looked at just recently to provide roadways and thoroughfares and mobility so that we can continue to have positive growth and not just huge congestion.
And I saw somebody posting yesterday, didn't some new big road just get opened up the last few days? It was a major barrier to people getting into Conroe, getting into Houston somewhere, Honey Egypt area, somewhere around there.
Well, we opened there was a piece that was a widening that was done on the Fish Creek thoroughfare.
Fish Creek, that's right.
Yeah, the very far southern end of Fish Creek, just as you approach 1488, was a contract that we entered into that Commissioner Riley just completed with the Westwood Improvement District. It was a cooperative project between Montgomery County and the Special Improvement District. They funded that project along with us to widen to 5 lanes, 2 lanes and a turn lane, from the entrance to Sendera Ranch back to 1488. If you've traveled through that area anytime recently, the congestion there was just unbelievable.
Well, tell me if I get this correct the way I look at it. I mean, that's important to get that done proactively versus reactively, because now you'll have commercial developers, you'll have residential developers that will be able, their product will look prettier to people. More people were going to want to buy and build. More businesses will come along there to service those people. So it's much more attractive, more than just, hey, I can get to work faster.
Yeah, a lot of times it takes that development to generate the revenue to be able to afford the construction. But the idea and the goal, especially through our major thoroughfare plan that we just had our 4th update completed on, we approved it in Commissioner's Court last Tuesday, is to identify those corridors and to give you a little history on how the Fish Creek thoroughfare was created. Years and years ago, when Montgomery Trace was developed and Sendera Ranch was developed, the developers donated that right-of-way in their development plan for the Fish Creek thoroughfare. And if you ever travel the old Honey Egypt alignment, it was a windy little narrow road. Well, when Montgomery Trace developed and Sendera Ranch, not only did they donate the right-of-way, but in their development plan, they constructed portions of those roadways as part of their subdivisions. So when we did Fish Creek a few years ago with the bond issue in 2005, we were able to build a bridge over Lake Creek, build about a half a mile of road, and tie into those developer roads and create the Fish Creek thoroughfare, which moved traffic off of that very dangerous Honey Egypt road. So planning was put in place 25 or 30 years ago to create that thoroughfare that's now there today. And so that thoroughfare plan we will use going forward. So if a large land tract owner owns 1,000 acres somewhere, and we realize there's a major thoroughfare going to go through that area, we're going to look to them to not only donate that right away, but to develop portions of that road in there, because they're going to need roads to get into their development anyway. Develop portions of that road into that development, and then we'll tie our roads into that at some point in the future. But it protects and preserves those corridors so that we don't have a subdivision or a business right where a major road's going to come through and have to displace them at some point in the future.
So similar to like I-10, where you have a lot of residential stuff.
Yeah,
Okay,
when you're trying to move people, the idea with Fish Creek, we were able to build that road without displacing one single home. But when we widened 1488, acquiring that right-of-way was the toughest part of that project, because we had businesses whose not only their buildings but their parking lots and other things were impacted. We're trying to avoid that into the future.
It has to be a hard job sometimes, because really you are trying to make it better for everybody, but you're affecting individuals with your decisions. And I guarantee you there's one person who will sit out there and chain themselves to that pole and be like, you're not doing this. But we're sitting here with County Judge Craig Doyle.
Don't give anybody ideas. Yeah. Don't do it. Just say no.
And I know who they are.
We're sitting here with the County Judge Craig Doyle, and we're going to take a quick music break. It is 9:13 here on IRLoneStar.com, Montgomery County's community radio station. Stick around. We got Bubba Wesley right here in the Interstate Heartbreak with their song 18 Wheelers. We'll be back after this.
Ever heard the term time is money? Well, at Marshall & Brown Accounting, they'll maximize your time and deliver real-time results, taking away the confusion and stress of protecting your valuable financial assets. Marshall & Brown Accounting will take that old shoebox full of receipts and provide you with a real-time, cloud-based, viable solution. Contact Marshall & Brown Accounting today at 832-412-7122 or visit Marshall & Brown Accounting at marshallandbrown.com.
Whiskey Falls with Last Train Running, 9:21. Mornings at Lone Star. Meet the candidates right here on IRLoneStar.com, Montgomery County's community radio station. We have your County Judge, Craig Doyle, in the studio, answering questions on Montgomery County Lifestyles Facebook. So if you got them, send them over to Nathan, my co-host. And we were talking a little bit about the responsibilities of the county judge and also the growth here in Montgomery County and what's really going on. And next, we're going to talk to I want to talk to the judge, or Craig Doyle, Judge Craig Doyle, about what Nathan's been highlighting. He says, you've been making us and saving us money. And I go, wait a second, someone working in the government is making us money?
Well, it's interesting. We passed a bond issue last just this last year.
Was it November?
I think it was in November, yes. We actually sold those bonds just this last week. And it was interesting what happened, because we were able to sell, we were going to sell $60 million of the bonds that we passed a $280 million bond issue on. So in order to generate $60 million in revenue or in proceeds, we were able to do that by selling $53 million worth of debt, because those bonds sold at a premium. So people were paying more than par for those bonds. So we actually got $60 million worth of capital for $53 million worth of debt that we issued. Now, we initially thought that bond, those bonds would be at about a 5% rate. That's where we calculated them. They actually came in at 3.37. So we're going to end up spending about $17 million less for the debt service on those bonds than what we anticipated. So, we're not making money, and you really can't say we're saving money, but the cost was far less than what we had anticipated by about $17 million.
So it gives the county more flexibility.
A little more flexibility,
okay.
A little less debt.
Yes.
And at the same time, we refinanced some of the existing debt that we had. Now, this is a true savings. We were able to refinance about $65 million worth of debt in selling about $58 million worth of bonds. So we reduced that debt significantly there, and we refinanced it from a rate of 5.1% down to 3.04%. for a true savings of about $9.7 million. So we have really been able to hit a home run with the sale of the bonds that were approved back in November, and with the refinancing of some of the debt that we currently have.
I just think that's pretty huge. And I know I use the terms, just layman terms, the way people think of it, saving money, making money. And you're right. It's not really like you gave me $100 for my phone here that I don't know anything on. But in a layman's way, it kind of is, though.
Well, penny saved is penny earned.
Absolutely.
So
ultimately,
to the benefit of the taxpayer, most certainly.
How much total? In those couple of transactions, how much total do you think that is?
Well, it's about $24 million differential in what we would have paid. Well, it's actually more than that. It's about $26 million.
So you could have just
would have cost.
Done status quo, not did anything, not changed anything.
Right.
and
we would
that
have
would
paid
have
$26 million more that we'd have had to pay to cover those costs. So
but you get proactive, you look for something, and we've got a great credit rating.
Absolutely.
And people look at the county and they say it's being run properly, so we want to get involved.
Yeah, our credit rating, we're a AA1 and AA plus with Moody's and Standard & Poor's, and the investors out there look at that. That's why they paid a premium for these bonds. They're trying to get out of the stock market into a more stable municipal bond situation like we have, and our current credit rating was huge. It was a big factor in that. So it worked out perfectly for us. We hit a home run with that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how the system works after the November election or any type of election for bonds, and how what's the next step. People don't care. They just voted and take care of it.
Yeah, they voted and won the road being built today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it takes time, and we're not going to sell $280 million worth of debt all at one time. We're going to phase that out over a few years' time, 3 years' time.
How boring are your meetings? Because talking about that kind of stuff and to the points where you're doing the ratios. I mean, I can't imagine.
They're not always boring. Come over there and hang out sometime. You want to look and go, did that really come out of that person's mouth?
Are these public?
Our commissioner's court can be the most boring hour and a half you will ever spend, or the best free show in town, depending upon the agenda of the day. Well, but these particular meetings, when you get into the nuts and bolts of
that's
it,
important.
County business, it's very important. But it's
and
not real exciting stuff. It's business. We take care of the business of Montgomery County.
I haven't seen any commissioners jumping over each other to get each other's throat or anything like that. Or
are these open to? Are they public?
The commissioners' court meetings are public. Yeah, we meet the second Tuesday or every other Tuesday. Every other Tuesday at 9:30 on the fourth floor of the Allen B. Sadler Building, and we encourage people to come and see what a commissioner's court meeting is like, what their county government looks like in action.
Because, I mean, that's one thing we always kind of talk about with the candidates running, and about the accountability and how to keep in touch with especially somebody that is representing us here and not being here, like, say, for example, a congressman or something like that.
Right.
And how do we keep in touch? How do we know what they're doing? Do they have a Facebook page they post to all the time, or do they have a blog, or they have a video, or they can't always just call them, bother them all the time. So with your position, how do people know besides reading the Courier? Because I know the Courier covers what was said, but it's in a little paragraph on the third page.
Yeah, we try to put out news, press releases on every event that comes up. And so, we'll try to get that information out as quickly as possible to people so they know what's going on. And we want people to know.
Where do I go for those press releases?
I'll get that information to you when we come back after break, and I'll make sure I have
cool.
that.
I mean, that's just something interesting to me, especially with those who are so passionate about the controversial road bond stuff. And making sure, because this isn't just happening in a year. This is going to be going on for at least 5.
It's long term, and like I said,
how do you?
The major thoroughfare plan is something that's been in place for 30 years, and there's been lines on maps for 30 years that are not built today, and probably some of them may not be for the next 10, 20, maybe 30 more years. But we need to identify those roadways and where those roads are going to need to be, so that as development occurs, we can manage that better.
I'm curious too. You said something a minute ago. So you passed the road bond, and all that hoopla's done and everything. Mm-hmm. So who's going to get the phone call the next day saying, why haven't you broke ground yet? Is that going to be you? Is that going to be Charlie, Jim?
Yeah, that'll be the commissioners. Each of the commissioners, somebody said something about a road being fixed the other day, and I said, I know a guy. I used to be a guy, but now I know a guy. Well, each of the commissioners will independently operate their precincts, and there was a list of projects that were put out during the road bond. They'll prioritize those projects and address them accordingly. So if you live in precinct 1, you'd call Commissioner Metter, or 2, you call Commissioner Charlie Riley, or so on, if you have a road that you have a question about. And we're going to try to put up an interactive site, and I'll get you that location too, so that people can go to the mctx.org website and link to it and see an interactive site where we've asked each of the commissioners to send information to us as these projects are ongoing, so we can keep that out there for people.
Yeah, one thing I'm constantly surprised at is the lack of current information about what's going on with the roads, as in Houston especially, when they say, we're going to close down I-10, and they have these signs saying it's closed, and you drive by and it's open. And you're like, man, I didn't know that. And
well, a lot of times they'll put those out in the event that they don't get through a project in a certain amount of time. They have to give advance warning just in case. And sometimes if a project finishes and they get it open, all the better. But we'd rather people know that
the warning sign.
Well, we'd rather they know that there's that possibility than have you get there and be.
Because I imagine there's just one phone call that needs to happen. Like, hey, we're done here. We're packed up. Turn off the sign.
Can't talk about I-10, but in the precincts, you can contact your commissioners and get that information very easily.
Because I know TxDOT has that information too,
yes.
when it comes down to not not the county roads or anything like that. But with
well, that's another thing. People a lot of times don't realize the difference between a county road, a state road, a city road, and an interstate highway. They're very different. All state roads, all state roads are numbered. Most interstate roads are 2 numbers, like I-45, I-10, I-59. State highways like 105, 249 are all numbered. Farm to market roads, they're 3 numbered roads. Farm to market roads are 4 numbers, like 1488, 1960, such on. And then county roads have names to them generally. So, and then you have city roads. So the city of Conroe maintains the roads within their incorporated city limits. The county maintains the roads in the county, and the state maintains the state and federal highways.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize is that also includes the woodlands with the county roads, correct?
Correct.
Like
all of the roads in the woodlands are county roads.
So that to me is pretty incredible. I don't think people really realize that, and that's just because of how the woodland was built and how they established themselves. But with this importance of roads, it's such a hot topic for a lot of people, and especially who want to move here and they want to make a living here with their family and generational. And I know a lot of old school Conroe people are like, this is such a crazy place now, especially here in 105. 105 has changed drastically in the past 10 years. And with the future coming, it's so hard because I don't see anything negative really happening, if that makes any sense, with the growth, especially the different areas of Montgomery County. Because like you said, East Montgomery County is getting a lot of love with growth. North Montgomery County is getting a lot of love with growth. And especially the lake will probably always be getting a lot of love. Right. And especially over in the west side, too. So it's kind of like, man, there's got to be a bad thing that's coming. There's got to be. There's always a bad.
I think there could be if we don't stay ahead of it.
Well, that's right. I mean, if you're sitting at gridlock in traffic, I mean, here think about this. 1488 was on TxDOT's plan for an 8-year plan to widen. When we did our pass-through program a few years ago where we partnered with the state, we sold bonds back in 2005, and the county actually constructed the widening on 1488, 1484, 1485, 1314, and those flyovers at 242. We built those facilities at our cost, and TxDOT's now paying us back through what they call a shadow toll program. Now, TxDOT was going to widen 1488 8 years later than we did. Imagine what 1488 would be like today if it were still 2 lanes.
Wow. And
so we were very proactive in the pass-through program and looking at very innovative ways to make sure that we stay ahead of the curve. It's a challenge. It is. And there's in the major thoroughfare plan, you see some controversial projects out there. But if we don't stay looking forward and planning for future growth and providing corridors that will allow people to get in and out of different subdivisions in different areas of Montgomery County, then we're not doing our job. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. I think it's partly a big part of what you do. And when we come back, we're probably going to have a break. I want to talk to you about law enforcement, safety, things like that your position and the Commissioner's Court have to do with the county.
Look forward to it.
So stick around here on Mornings Lone Star. Meet the candidates with your county judge, Craig Doyal. We're going to take a quick music break, so stick around.
Imagine a place where you can sip on Italian coffee and have a sandwich, followed by a fabulous, delectable pastry. We invite you to stop by Conroe Coffee to experience old world charm. Conroe Coffee is located next to the historic Creighton Theater in downtown Conroe. We are open 7 days a week. Please check our website for business hours at conroecoffee.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a caffeinated day.
Lou Edmondson can't run. Mornings of the Lone Star here at irlonestar.com. Meet the candidates with Nathan Arrazate of Montgomery County Lights Out and your county judge, Craig Doyal. I want to jump right into this topic because it's really interesting to, especially what the county does and how we're prepping for this huge growth or continuous growth. Really, it's not all just one big wave coming to us. Is transportation is always a big issue, not just roads, but different modes of transportation. And one thing that you guys kind of have some control over, from what I understand, is the airport.
Right.
That area.
Right.
So can you kind of give us an idea of what the airport, like I know the airport extended its runway, so it gave it a different classification,
right,
so they can accept better planes, bigger planes.
Bigger planes, yes.
And with that kind of idea, what's the next step for an airport like that, and especially
that
for the
airport,
county?
If you've not been out to the Conroe North Houston Regional Airport lately, take a trip. It's worth going out there. They're really growing out there. We just finished the extension of our longest runway, which gives us a runway now. The longest one out there is 100 feet short of the longest runway at Hobby. So we can land the largest corporate jets that fly and get them out of that airport with a full load of fuel on a hot summer day, which in the past was impossible to do because the runway was too short. So the airport's really designed to accommodate more of the big corporate jets in this area. And as you see growth here, the corporate growth here starting to expand, that's going to be more and more important for us. We're also in the process of constructing a customs facility on the airport. That was a partnership with the city of Conroe, with Galaxy FBO out there on the airport.
What's a customs? What is that?
Well, what that will do is you can clear customs as you can fly into
international
Conroe North Houston Regional international flights and clear customs at our airport right here in Montgomery County. So, in the city of Shenandoah stepped up and provided some funding for us. The Woodlands Economic Development Partnership, the EDP, the business community of the Woodlands, saw the value of it and stepped up and partnered with us as well. They brought some funding to the table because they see the value of having a corporate facility where these large corporations can get their corporate jets.
These big wigs.
Well, let me tell you what. They got
to fly somewhere.
Going back to what pays the bills, those corporations. And having that big corporate footprint does three things for us. It provides a broader tax base for us. Mm-hmm. It provides good quality job opportunities for the people that are here. And to some extent, it provides traffic mitigation. If you can work right here in Montgomery County and not have to get on I-45 or 59 or 249 and go into Houston, all the better.
Now, explain to me why not the extra 100 feet for the road?
Expense, just dollars.
I'm just wondering.
Just sheer dollars. I mean, and that runway gave us plenty to do what we needed to do. The airport won't handle big commercial flights because the taxiways were never constructed to accommodate the big heavy planes like you would see in a passenger flight.
Well, my understanding is even if you did that extra 100 feet, you've got to go somewhere like 10 to 15 inches deeper as well too, and you can't layer on top. You'd have to rip everything back up, and
runway construction is very expensive, and that gave us plenty of runway. We didn't need to add the additional.
I was just wondering, because I know that conversation and me not knowing anything about how to build a runway. Thanks for the answer. Now I do understand.
Yeah.
So, with the involvement of the county judge with the airport, what is the relationship? Is it something that you oversee?
No. We have an airport director, and that airport is in Precinct 1, and Commissioner Metter kind of is really the liaison to the court with the airport. He's been very, very involved and very instrumental in a lot of that growth out there. And really, Scott Smith, our airport director, received an award last year from the state of Texas as the Reliever Airport Manager of the Year. So we've got quality people out there, and Scott's doing a really good job in building a tool for us that will be a good economic engine for that future growth.
Because we are looking at the growth going 20 years into the future. So I think a lot of people don't realize that yet.
We have to.
And with that in mind, I know the county judge, now I'm getting a better understanding that how you maintain the commissioner's court and really the future of transportation for Montgomery County. Do you see any other modes of transportation? Because I know Texans love their cars. I love my car. But sometimes I wish it was a little easier to get to places. And what, as a county judge, can you do to really just improve that? Or more of, I guess you can just make a statement. You can't really put some shovels in the dirt about it.
The commissioners are the ones that are building the roadways out there to provide mobility. And we're not in the public transit business by any stretch of the imagination. We don't need to be or want to be because of the rural nature of most of the county.
And the headache.
and the expense. But I will say this. I sit on the Gulf Coast Rail District Board as well, which looks at commuter and freight rail issues.
Now, is that a volunteer deal, or is that more of you're the county judge, so you get invited?
Our court appointed me to be our representative to the Gulf Coast Rail District.
Okay.
And so we look at with the expansion of the port in Houston, we're seeing a lot more freight rail coming out of the port.
And freight meaning like big,
like heavy freight moving across country.
Okay.
And so that keeps all the freight rail jammed up. There's no room to put commuter rail lines on those freight rails. So we're looking at ways to put commuter rail lines in those same corridors, maybe a parallel track to a freight rail track that could provide a commuter rail from Conroe to Houston, or from New Caney to Houston, or Magnolia to Houston. We looked at the high-speed rail that was coming through Montgomery County. Didn't make any sense at all to me. If they were going to have a stop somewhere here in Montgomery County, going from Houston to Dallas, maybe along the I-45 corridor, it would have made good sense. But to go through West Montgomery County with no stop, no use for county residents.
They just get a nice view.
That's it.
That's really what they get.
It really didn't have any advantage to us. But really, my concern is not so much getting people from Houston to Dallas, but from getting people locally from Montgomery County into Houston to job sites.
Because a lot of people do travel from Montgomery County to Houston.
Sure.
A few probably travel to Fort Worth, Dallas area. But really a lot of the traffic going southbound on I-45 is from the Woodlands, Conroe area.
Right.
And that's where it starts building up right there at the Beltway. That's where like the major first congestion happens is right there.
The Grand Parkway will be a game changer in a lot of that too. But you also have to think about, you can only build so many lane miles of freeway. Look at I-10; it's 14 lanes wide, and there's still congestion out there. At some point, you got to start looking at other alternatives. And I'm not talking about this year or next, but we still have to keep an eye on the future.
Me as a fan of transportation and not doing anything, I would love to have self-driving cars or a train because I really don't want to do anything. I don't know if anyone's ever tried out the Megabus, but the Megabus is a really comfortable way of transportation towards like San Antonio and stuff because they have Wi-Fi and everything. Really, I can work on the radio station while
traveling.
3 hours of traveling, 4 hours of traveling. So it's something that's always on my mind, especially I bet it's on a lot of people's minds who travel to Houston because every day that's the biggest headache.
Spend a lot of time in that vehicle. Yeah.
So
let me ask you this: in my opinion, too, another big part of county budget. Importance for safety of the residents here. I want to read. Somebody sent something in.
Okay.
I want to read something to you and then let you take off of this. The Commissioner's Court during Judge Doyal's tenure has recognized the need for more and better law enforcement in Montgomery County. I'm proud to support Judge Doyal and his efforts to make our county safer. Any idea who might have sent that in?
Well, there's about 5 people I can say I hope it was.
Well, no, it wasn't Amy or Lindsay. It was Constable Rowdy Hayden.
Well, thank you, Constable. I appreciate that. And the Constable makes a good point. Our law enforcement personnel need as much support as possible. When you think about Montgomery County and you compare the growth here to a lot of other fast growth counties that we get compared to a lot of times, like Fort Bend County or Denton County or Collin County, fast growing counties near a large metroplex or a metropolitan center like Houston, we are very different than most of those. Because a lot of them, Fort Bend County, for example, a lot of their county is covered by the corporate footprints of the city of Katy, the city of Sugar Land. Part of the city of Houston covers Fort Bend County. Where in Montgomery County, the largest incorporated area is the city of Conroe. Leaves our county about 85% unincorporated. You've got the city of Montgomery and Magnolia and Willis and some others, but they're very small. So 80 plus, probably 83 to 85% of Montgomery County is in the unincorporated areas, which leaves our constables and our sheriff's department being the law enforcement that are represented for those communities. And so they've got a lot of ground to cover. And our sheriff's department they do a tremendous job covering as much ground as they're required to cover. So we're going to try and work hard every day to support them. We funded about $4 million in this last budget cycle to the sheriff's department solely for the increase in law enforcement to put more boots on the ground out there.
Wow. And I guess that's fire department and EMS and things of that nature, too,
well,
in a way.
Fire department, they operate under the ESD, which is the Emergency Service District, which is a separate taxing entity which has their own boards that drive those. We don't deal with the fire department or the
emergency medical.
Emergency
EMS.
Medical, right, EMS, yeah. We do all the law enforcement in the unincorporated areas falls to our sheriff's department and to our constables.
And I don't think a lot of people realize as big as the Woodlands is and how they talk about the Woodlands and things of that nature, that's county. I mean, I think a lot of people take for granted because it's a city. A lot of people I don't think realize that it's not a city. It's not Conroe. It's not Magnolia. It's not New Caney. But I think that's a false, just a falsity that people kind of take that for granted.
There's a tremendous, like I say, 85% of our county we cover and that's roads. That's animal control, that's mosquito control, that's law enforcement. That's all falls back to the county that we don't have that backup from the larger cities that other rapidly growing counties like we do have.
Do you see that changing at all? That percentage?
It depends. The city of Conroe is very aggressively annexing right now and expanding. And
I say it's the new Houston. That's what I'm saying.
If the Woodlands were to incorporate, that would change. That would make a shift. But it's changing, certainly. I don't know how dramatically it will change very quickly, but...
well, I'm excited for it, to see. I always like change. You always see what happens, especially where the coin
change is coming,
coin
whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And so I just want to say a quick thank you for Craig Doyal, your county judge. Thank you so much for coming in and being part of the... Hold on, what?
Are we through?
We got to wrap up. We got a show coming up. So we're gonna give you time. We're gonna give you some. If you need to say something, you're more than welcome.
I want to do one thing real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
One snapshot comparison to let people know what you get for your county dollar.
Okay.
At the federal level, we spend $11,600 per capita to fund the federal government. At the state level, it's about $3,800. At the city of Conroe level, it's about $2,300 per person to fund their annual budgets. Woodlands Township, it's a little less than $1,200 a year. At the county level, we spend a little over $600 per person to provide services to this community. Now, that's $50 a person per month. What do you get for that? You get the 7th largest sheriff's department in the state of Texas, 5 JPs, 5 constables, 5 county courts at law, 7 district courts, county attorney, county clerk, district clerk, adult and juvenile probation, veteran services, animal control, mosquito control, the Convention and Expo Center, the airport, libraries, your road and bridge department, including our county engineer's office, debt service on the debt we carry, and a balanced budget every single year for $50 per person annually in this county. Our Commissioner's Court's working really hard to make sure that there's value for the taxes that we ask you to pay, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, there you go. That needs to be on a website.
It is.
There you go.
I like the numbers and I like the presentation. It's eye-opening.
And to get on our list for press releases,
Yes.
just email my chief of staff, Jim Fredericks, if you would, at james.fredericks@mctx.org. And we're working on putting a link to our county site. We just don't have that yet. But you can contact james.fredericks@mctx.org and get on the list, and you'll get all of our press releases going forward.
Because it's important to be informed, folks, and that's the whole purpose of Meet the Candidates here on Lone Star Internet Radio with Mornings of Lone Star. Nathan, again, thank you for being my co-host. Who's coming in tomorrow for Fridays?
Tomorrow is Chuck Meyer, who's
Chuck Meyer.
candidate for judge.
410 or 9th?
410th.
I like doing that.
410th.
I like doing that to Nathan.
Man, well, because what's crazy is the average person is not really talking about it, but the people who know that a judge is a big deal, they can really affect and impact the county's life. So
That's tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Stick around. Mornings of Lone Star. Coming up next, of course, will be the Cindy Cochran Show. And then after her, we'll have the Parkway Pulse with the Magnolia Parkway Chamber of Commerce at 11 a.m. And I think the Judge Craig Doyal.
Just want to say thank you, Dick. Enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it. Good to see you as always.
If you're just catching the tail end of the conversation with County Judge Craig Doyal, we are recording everything for our podcast, so keep an eye on SoundCloud and YouTube. We'll be posting as soon as we can. Stick around here on our Lone Star Montgomery County's Community Radio. We're going to take a quick music break. Coming up next will be, of course, the Cindy Cochran Show. Here's some Merle Haggard with you if we make it through December.
Thank you for checking out a podcast on Lone Star Internet Radio. Lone Star Internet Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station, broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas. If you are interested in sponsoring a program for Lone Star Internet Radio, just visit us online at irlonestar.com. or message us on Facebook. We are always taking song requests on Twitter, and if you are interested in getting involved with the station by either hosting your own show or if you want to be a DJ, just contact Dick at irlonestar.com. Lone Star Internet Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station.